Hello, welcome back to the third edition of the Restore Our Planet podcast with me, your host, Jack Cole. Today I'm joined by Chinedu Mogbo, who is a conservationist working out of Lagos with his organisation, the Green Fingers Initiative. Today we'll be talking about bushmeat, legal trade in animals and ivory, amongst others, the plight of the pangolin, what to be done about it, how Nigeria is changing and adapting to a growing economy and population, and much, much more. So if you enjoy this conversation, please follow us on restoreourplanet.org, where you can also make a donation, or you can see us and our daily work through daily updates from LinkedIn, Facebook, and one more, Twitter. That's the one. All right, so thank you. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. Okay, so welcome everybody and everyone listening. I'm here with Chinedu Mogbo, and today we're going to talk about a variety of topics related to legal wildlife trade in Nigeria, across the world, some of the great work he's been doing. So Chinedu, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Jack.
No, it's wonderful to have you. So you have a very interesting background. And great education and so forth. But your main work at the moment, as I understand it, is working for the Green Fingers Initiative.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. Green Fingers in itself is it's a wildlife conservation initiative that was set up in 2012, which basically is focused on wildlife conservation, rescue, rehabilitation, and education of the Nigerian populace about the issues of wildlife here in Nigeria, the problems wildlife face, and why we need to conserve wildlife here in Nigeria. We also, in the same vein, we also have a sanctuary that runs and caters for, right now at the moment, over 150 different animals, ranging from 60 different species within the sanctuary. Now, these are animals that have basically been through quite a lot. They've had issues with humans. They have been rescued from the wildlife trade, and sometimes it's quite difficult to rehome these animals. So they stay within the Green Fingers Wildlife Sanctuary till we basically get a suitable place for them to stay. But one of the major things, then the Green Fingers also, so within the same vein of the educational space, we also train a lot of youths, teenagers, children about wildlife conservation and becoming advocates for wildlife here also in Nigeria, because we know it's a major problem in Nigeria, and we really have to owe it up to the next generation to make sure that we do something to ensure the longevity of wildlife in Nigeria. So that's what Green Fingers is, basically.
It's fantastic, brilliant. So you mentioned that obviously you look after and rehabilitate quite a number of species there. One of the really iconic ones that you look after is the pangolins. I was wondering if you could just tell our listeners a little bit about the pangolin and the issues it's facing in Nigeria.
Okay. Well, it's quite a problem, and it's a major one. Now, Nigeria is now known as one of the major centers for illegal pangolin trafficking. Now, even if most of the pangolin don't even come from Nigeria, Nigeria now is a transit hub, which basically means from all parts of Africa, they come to Nigeria. Then from Nigeria is like a depot where most of the pangolin scales will be deposited before they are now moved to the Asian countries like Vietnam and other parts of the Asian countries. Now, so that is that's the front of the international wildlife trade of pangolin scales. Now, when we talk about the local problems, now pangolins have actually, in fact, as far as I can remember, since the inception of since Green Fingers started, now the pangolin was not popular in the media as at that time, and we used to see the pangolins, a lot of them, in the Bushmeat market. We were also even a bit skeptical, like, what kind of animal is this? We were not really sure about the information surrounding the animal. It was quite a difficult animal to also rehabilitate. And over the years, now, 2 years ago and up till today, the numbers now we get to see have been dwindling. Like, it still happens. Pangolins are still being sold for bushmeat, for for people who want to consume them. People want to use them for some form of medicinal purposes, or one or the other, and it still happens even as of today. So when we look at these issues, when we look at this problem, we know that we just have to take swift action. We have to start learning how to rehabilitate them. We had to know how to give them that care. They're quite a difficult one to also care for because of their unique diet, but I'll get to that shortly. But so dealing with all these things really puts Nigeria on that perspective. Now, a lot of Nigerians, and Jack, I'm not kidding you, any Nigerian, almost anybody I meet first, and I ask them, okay, what is this animal? What do you think this animal is? They have no clue. Some call it rats, some call it armadillo. Armadillo is not found anywhere in Africa, basically. So they call it, because it's what they've only seen on TV, it's what they've seen on the news. And you wonder why it's really the least considered. Like, but it's huge in the international space, like in international trade. Now, these are the challenges and these are the problems pangolins face. One other thing about the pangolin is that because it's an animal that doesn't really have, I mean, when it comes to other animals, they have a very good defense mechanism. I mean, they roll up into a ball. Even lions find it difficult to get to them. But for humans, there is no defense for that. So basically, what happens, we see that once they spot the pangolin, it rolls up into a ball and they get picked up. So they get picked up and they're brought over to be sold for meat, and sometimes it's quite gruesome. We get to witness some of the things these pangolins basically go through, and it's quite a challenge, and it's quite problematic, because we know here in Nigeria that if we totally eradicate this species, which we believe, we don't even know the numbers. We don't even know the numbers we have left. We don't know whether they're critically endangered. Definitely, they've disappeared from some regions now locally, and the problem will only keep mounting as we have huge amounts of deforestation taking place, habitat encroachment. The pangolin is actually being worn out it's almost being extinct locally from Nigeria. And these are the things that we try to, as much as possible, educate people about. Also, even beside the fact that most of the pangolins here in Nigeria are not part of the international wildlife trade, we actually have begun to see that they are now evidences that are coming out that our pangolins also are being stacked on a daily basis. For example, we are seeing that daily people are just, some set of people are picking up 6, like they can pick up 6 pangolins today, tomorrow they pick up another 7, tomorrow they pick up. Now, over the course of a month, you can imagine how much pangolins they can actually collect. And these pangolins now are being one way or the other shipped out of the country and to other spaces. Now, as a country in Nigeria, we know, we know some of our problems, we know some of our challenges. And one of the major challenges we face as a country is corruption. I think it's best plainly put that way. So because there's a lot of money involved in this, they buy out the officials so that these things can just basically go through without any form of resistance. Now, that you think that's going to stop there? Even the seizures, I'm sure if you've seen the news, there's been loads of seizures of pangolin scales from Nigeria. There was one in 2018. There was one in 2019. In 2020, there was another one. In 2021, there's been 2. But do you know, we cannot still attest to the whereabouts of these scales that have basically been seized. And these are the problems. The lack of transparency are the problems that these wildlife and the issue of pangolins, these are the problem wildlife basically face in the country, and with the lack of education. I mean, I actually do teach here also in Nigeria. I teach in a school. Now, within the curriculum, there is nowhere a pangolin is mentioned. or the concept. There's nowhere Pangolins mentioned. So a child can go through 9 years of education here, may never hear of one of these major species, which basically are being threatened here in Nigeria, which we also see as a major problem. And now I'm talking about the federal curriculum, like the general curriculum for the whole of Nigeria. And these are the problems which we see, and we can't help it but get into that space and begin to do something to curb the task.
I've read that you found your interest in wildlife quite a young age, I think about 10 or so.
Yes.
You said that you were discouraged. Now, just linking into what you've just said there, why is that? Why do you think that was? Why is there this attitude of not like lack of interest in various species, etc., and therefore it's such a problem within the curriculum?
So I didn't get that. So can I
Yeah,
get that
no,
part of the question?
absolutely. So yeah, I was just mentioning that you found your interest in wildlife quite a young age, about 10 years old.
Yeah.
But you said that you were discouraged from sort of pursuing that interest, and you just mentioned there that there's like a kind of widespread lack of awareness, lack of education, perhaps lack of interest in Nigerian curriculum or society. Obviously not everywhere, but it's a large problem.
Yeah.
I just wondered why that is.
Okay. Personally, if I were to use my experiences, I didn't know why I liked wildlife, why I liked animals at the age of 10, but I just always found myself with them. I would get ants in a jar. I would like just to watch them sit down there. I'd have birds just running around. I'm just sitting out there every day. I would leave the video games and I'll be watching the birds. I would just want to just see them and just be there with them. But why I was discouraged, because there was nobody that really encouraged my desire. Like the zoos were basically not even I would say not in existence at that time. You go there, you see the way the animals are kept, you see the way the animals are being treated, even up till today. But everything around the society, then you see I'm on the streets. You see them putting animals in cages. They're just selling them on the roads. I mean, as a child, then I didn't really think too much. I would just see them and be sad, and I would always want to take them home, in as much as nobody, my parents wouldn't have allowed that, because they were like, "No, I don't want that in my house. You're not getting that in my house. You know, that's not coming to my house." Sometimes, even when I have to get to school, then because my school was close to a forest, I would see like stray animals or stray cats, for example, no parents, I would bring it home. They'll be like, "It's not going to stay in my house." So you see, all these things were more or less, even the fact I was in school, there was no, I think, except the study of agriculture, which basically teaches about farm animals and stuff, which is what I even discovered myself loving even the most, even the most. But in a whole nutshell, there was really nothing that really encouraged that or fanned the flame. And while I was in university, especially in the UK, I remember every break I had, every time off school, I'll enter either a pet store or go to the zoo in one city or the other. In fact, I had to visit every zoo around. I just wanted to be there. And that gave me, seeing everyone there, seeing the way the animals were being treated, that gave me kind of like a hope. It's kind of, there was a silver lining that something can be done. This is good. This is what is needed. This is what is required for this is how animals should be. And this is how we can also encourage people, young people, children who love this, to actually grow in it if you have something very sustainable. Now, when I came back and when I was in doing my work, because of this, I saw these gaps in my time. Then you think about over a span of 10, 15 years, those gaps are still there. We felt, you know what, we wouldn't let this happen. It's my responsibility. I take it as a responsibility for the next generation to do something for them, so that I now see children, young people who have that kind of thing now feeling happy. They're expressing themselves. They're interested. They see a space where they can come and want to be one with nature. And for us, and for me, that alone gives me that. It's a joyous moment for me, because that is the thing that I was discouraged about. But now seeing other children and encouraging other people is basically what now I am standing for, and I hope it will even go go even further. And that's basically it.
Fantastic, brilliant. Yeah. Also, I wanted to ask you. So this is from a position of ignorance. Bushmeat markets. Now, obviously, different countries, people eat different things, different histories, different species. In the UK, we're very much acclimatized to eating, obviously, chicken, beef, etc. In Nigeria, in the bushmeat markets, is this, in one sense, not a case of people just eating the local species that they have access to, or how is it sort of more problematic than that?
Now, when we talk about the bushmeat market here, it's problematic because there is no limit. I mean, you can get there, you can see the head of a lion, if possible. You can get there, you can see, and there is no limit because, and that is a problem. That is the main problem. I mean, we wouldn't go around.
Sorry, Chinedu. Sorry, we just lost you the connection for just a second. You were saying that if you go there, you can literally see lions' heads.
Okay. So we can, if you get to the market, you can see a lion's head. You can see a gorilla's head. You can see chimpanzee, the hands and the foot of chimpanzees. Which basically, and these animals are rare. I mean, these animals are endemic, which basically means some of them are only found here in Nigeria, which basically means once they are gone, once we've eaten them all, the animal will be extinct. And it's quite weird to think about eating an animal to extinction, like without no cost for sustainability. Now, but the problem, we also see that when we initially started, we were always against it. We said, no, don't like, but the whole Nigerian populace, as a result of tradition, culture, they were like, oh no, we eat bushmeat is part of our culture. You cannot tell us not to do that. We said, okay, no problem. Let's see how let's see how things can change. Can you leave out the endangered species? So leave out the endangered species. There are some species that have less, they say least concern. I mean, there are so many reasons why people want to eat this meat, but there are a lot of species that are of least concern. And okay, you can go for that. Well, leave out the endangered species, but there's no regulation, there's no control. And that is the major problem. Now, it happens, and this happens, like, I mean, you would think, and I have to say this, during the COVID, right, when the whole world was in lockdown, wet markets in Nigeria were still open. You know, Nigerians, they didn't have them. They were like, no, we've been doing this. COVID didn't come here, it didn't start from this market. You cannot tell us it's COVID that did that. And these markets have been in existence for over decades, 3 decades now, if I must say, if not over. So it's a problem, and we need to do something about it. Okay, if you don't want to close it down, regulate it. Is what we keep telling the government, is what we keep pushing for these policies. Things have to be done. Okay, we are an NGO. I mean, there's really little we can do. We cannot enforce certain things without the government's support or without the government's hand. So we can only like make you aware that don't do this or stop this. And that's basically what we've been doing. We've been making people aware. We've been putting it out there, even within the bushmeat market. But nobody has told, before we even started, nobody had told them that pangolins were endangered. Nobody had told them that vultures shouldn't be killed. I mean, these things are happening, and we are seeing already a result of those actions. Now, you talked about bushmeat market. Yeah, that is for the local consumption. There is another market that's animal. It's another kind of wildlife market, which is called the traditional market. Now, these kinds of markets, these animals are being dried. Now, it could be whole animals, but they are being dried because they are being used for some form of fetish purposes or some traditional voodoo stuff, whatever the thing they're getting out of it, you know. And those markets basically also exist, and these are big markets, and I mean big markets that are just out there, not in the dark, and they have everything. I've had the opportunity to visit these markets, and I've seen the heads of gorillas, the heads of chimpanzees, the hands. So they go for specific parts. For vultures, they will go for the head and the foot of vultures. every kind of vulture is basically game. The claws of leopards, the teeth of a lion, the bone of an elephant, and I mean, there is there is no limit, and that is the problem we have.
And is that those markets still tied to the international market, or is that more local, or is it like Westerners who come in and hunt? Who's those markets? Who do they cater for?
Okay, for the web market where the Bushmeat market is actually, it caters to everyone. It caters to both the local and the international folk. Because I do a lot of the time, and I have recorded many times, seeing like in the people from Asia coming, visiting these markets, buying the animals, buying the snakes, because to them it's a delicacy. Some of them don't come. They send their Nigerian, Nigerian keepers or Nigerian house people and stuff to go to those markets and get those animals for them. Then you have the local consumption, which basically any middle class man. And another thing, which is another thing I must clear, people always think that the whole idea of the Bushmeat market is because of poverty, or it's because of people are poor. But that's not the case, because the people who buy these things are not the poor people. The poor people cannot afford bushmeat. Okay, the poor people might kill them, might get the animals, but the poor people are not the ones eating the animals. You have the middle class and the upper class folk. You have those ones buying the animals. We have there was a recent case I put up of a crocodile, a dwarf crocodile, that was being sold for over, I'm saying over $200 to $500. Now it is not. Don't tell me it's a poor person that's going to afford that. It's actually for the rich. So these are the things, and these are the problems we have. Now, for the traditional market, it caters to all sorts. I mean, we have the local people, definitely, because most of the voodoo practiced within Nigeria, people patronize these markets. Then people who come from other parts of the country, they go to some of these markets and buy things like ivory, because there are some places that they still do sell ivory. They buy the things like ivory or the skin of the animals, or the pelts of the animals, just basically because they found it being sold here in Nigeria. So it basically caters to everyone.
Nigeria is a rapidly growing country in terms of the economy, and I think half the population is under 30, I think, something like that. So it's set to really grow and expand in the coming decades. However, this has obviously brought about some conflict with the natural environment. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about the sort of human wildlife conflicts that are taking place in Nigeria.
Yeah, so it's on the rise, it's on the increase, and hopefully, I hope we can get past it. But let's see. Now, people, because of the lack of control, now the lands here are not always owned by the government. We have a lot of people, a lot of families, people saying that they own different parts of lands, and these lands are forests, have grown into forests. Now, all it takes is somebody's coming to say, "Oh, I would like to get that piece of land," and he gets the piece of land. Almost no EIA is done, environmental impact assessment is done. Even when it's done, most of the time, and certain animals that are buried, that are critically endangered, are found there, it's swept under the carpet, and basically they say, "Oh, no, just go, as far as the money is paid, go there and do what you have to do." Now, these things happen. Humans, then you have some of these animals still coming into the spaces of people. For example, they can fill out a whole region of a swamp forest, for example. Now, the crocodiles, the snakes, all these things, all these animals that are the forest cobras, the pythons, which have their homes there already, have to be driven out. The fishes are buried, no evidence or whatever. And sometimes, so while the person is in his house, these animals wander back into that same space. Once the animal wanders back in there, it's killed, it's basically killed, and somebody is eating them basically because of they have seen it. Then you have because Nigeria now is really growing in its agricultural space. Most of the lands are basically now being used for farming. Now, there's been a law that basically went out recently that they need to establish ranches for cattle. And that's a whole separate thing. But in fact, that you have to establish ranches for cattle. Now, to establish a ranch for cattle grazing, you have to cut down all the trees. You have to clear out the forest. And this is also it's a problem because we are setting up ranches for cattle, but we are not setting up wildlife conservation centers. We're not setting up these kind of issues. Now, the human conflict, wildlife conflict is growing. I mean, recently we have issues of elephants coming into elephants, which are actually found around close to where I stay. So you have people killing the elephants. Oh, that the elephants came and raided our farms, came into our farms, and we had no choice but to shoot the elephant or kill the elephant. There's also lack of education there, because what do you need to do in things like this? What is the government's role in supporting this thing? I mean, our elephant population has reduced by over 90% in the last decade. So these things are quite glaring to us, or quite are there. But really, what are we doing about it? And that is the major problem. The human-wildlife conflict will continue. Let's not think, as far as we encroach into their spaces, as far as we go into those regions where the animals are supposed to be safe, because of poor planning and poor community development ideas, poor urban planning systems, because of all that, the human wildlife will continue. And unfortunately, a lot of species have suffered as a result of that.
You mentioned that you started Green Fingers back in 2012. So tell me a little bit about how you've grown over the years and how you've expanded, some of the successes you had, and where you think Green Fingers will be in 5 and 10 years from now.
Okay, well, we started back in 2012. So it was, I can actually tell you, so I said, I didn't have much money then. I just come back. So there was where I was working in a school. So there was a space close to the school. I said, okay, since this place looks abandoned, I would like to use this place. And if I approach the school, I'd like to use this place to do something which I feel will be a benefit to the students of the school. So we started, we used wood, we started making some kind of enclosures to help some animals, to cater for them. Even while we were doing that, we were having a lot of issues because within the same space, there were other kinds of animals that sometimes would even come in there and disturb the animals we are trying to cater for. And but over the years, we've actually grown. We've become we basically moved from dealing with birds. We started with birds first, then we started getting other smaller mammals, started rescuing other smaller mammals. Then we started rescuing the reptiles, the bigger reptiles even. And now we have over 60 different species of animals. Now, we do also have, we've made a lot of successes. Like this year alone, we've released about 21 pangolins into into natural protected spaces. We're still in the process of rescuing more. With the aspect of rehabilitation, those animals, like I said, the over 150 are still within our care, and we still have to cater for them every day. I mean, the animals, but I'm glad, because when people come into the sanctuary and they see the animals, and they can attest that the animals are definitely well taken care of, because they definitely look good, and there's always a progress. There's actually progress from where they were to how they came into where they are today. But it's really not been an easy journey. It's been one of the most difficult one. When we started for the first 6 years, we didn't even get any sponsor whatsoever. We were just, because I had to take up a job, like I was working in the school. So it was a job that basically catered for the animals. I mean, then we also had to run educational programs every year. We have one big one every year also that brings people far and wide to come and learn about these animals and what they do and their importance in the ecosystem and why we should conserve them. When I also tried getting the government to come into the space, but I found myself having to pay the government for some unnecessary thing. And I was wondering, like, why do I have to do this? Like, I'm the one, like, do your job, you know? So I had to put that aside, but I still had to make sure that whatever we did, it was just definitely something that we could actually sustain. Then in the success when it comes to the students, we've trained over 200 students. We are still training more. Now, these students are actually called change makers. Now, this change makers is different from the regular students which we'll teach. Now, we bring these ones in and we educate them on issues of environment and wildlife, and they become advocates themselves. They start talking about it. And a lot of them have gained, a few of them have actually gained recognition in different parts of the country and outside the country also. So
Hello, Chinedu.
It's a consistent thing. So by the time
apologies, Chinedu. Sorry to interrupt you. We lost you again there for 10 seconds.
Yes.
Change makers. Go from there. Go from change makers, if you will, please. Oh. Hello.
Yes, sorry about that.
That's okay, no problem.
Sorry about that. I think
that's okay. It's a long distance. Yeah. So
okay,
change makers.
So for the change makers, we've been able to build them, and we didn't only focus now on the wildlife. We also focus on the environment also, because the environment. We've noticed that the environment. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Sorry. I think something keeps coming in. Just give me a minute. Just give me 1 minute.
No problem. No problem at all. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Just a little technical issue. Back with you shortly. Hydrate. Pangolins.
Sorry about that. Sorry.
No problem, Cheddar. No problem at all.
I found that the call was coming in, so I just wanted to make sure that I dealt with it. All right. So, so the change makers have, so they focus also on environment. For example, 2 years ago, the major issue we were facing globally was plastic pollution. Now, we saw how the plastic pollution is affecting even marine life, which also is part of wildlife. Now, I must also say that besides, you would think that Nigeria most of the problem was dealing with the animals on land. But we also discovered that it's extended beyond that. We started dealing with the Nigerians started harvesting the animals from the oceans. And what am I talking about? Things like sea turtles. We have sea turtles. People bringing them on land to sell them for food. We'll have to get them and rehabilitate them for a few days before we take them back into the deeper ocean, so that they basically don't get away from the Nigerian shores. So we had to do these things. So we saw how everything was basically coming together. The whole aspect of life on land for the Sustainable Development Goals, life in water, and a clean and healthy environment. We saw how all these things work in tandem. So we started training these children on ensuring that they make up, or they raise their voices for wildlife here and for the environment in Nigeria. And that over time has basically grown, and we are really, really proud of some of the achievements they have made. So with some of the things they do things like fashion shows where they use plastic to create outfits, that they go to malls and do some fashion shows in the malls with plastic, wearing plastic. So that has basically gone. We had a bit of international recognition on that earlier in the year, this year. So it's these are the things that we've been successfully been able to do. I mean, there was a news that came out on ITV also earlier in the year, that had to do with the local markets here in Nigeria, and it featured. I was in the on that one also, and we were talking about because at that moment we were capturing film, we're capturing images, we're capturing the people who were even coming to the market to buy these animals, and we saw that it ranged from both the local and the international people also. So these were the things we saw. So these are so we were really and trying to push out the word out, the information out there. That was in partnership with Wildlife. We really wanted to put it out there so that people will know that these are the problems we face in Nigeria, and we also wanted people to know that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done if we want to conserve our species here in Nigeria. And we are also happy for the animals that we've released. Besides the pangolins, we have vultures like lappet-faced vultures, which are the biggest vultures here in Africa. We still have them within our care because their locations are hundreds of miles away from us. So we have to actually, and where they're supposed to be released right now. It's a terrorist zone within Nigeria, so it's quite a difficult challenge. It's a challenge for us to put them back into those spaces, and so we still have to cater for them. And so we've had affiliations with a few people who have come around and have seen what we are doing, and they are quite impressed with the work we do, and we are really putting it out there for more. I mean, there's really no limit to what can be done, what we can do about conserving wildlife here in Nigeria.
Fantastic. So a bright future by the sounds of things, hopefully.
So for the I'm sure I missed out a question. So for the future,
go ahead.
For the future, that's the major thing, really. So where I told you initially that I took a space near the school, right, to do this. So we really want to move beyond this space. I mean, there are still parts of Nigeria that, or Lagos, even where I am located, that are still untapped. The forests are still there. We are seeking to acquire some of these spaces to ensure that we give, like for example, we talked about the pangolin. We have to put them in some areas, in some protected areas, but we also want to create bigger pangolin protection sites or pangolin rehabilitation sites within this space. So we want to own some of these spaces so that we know and we can follow through over the years or over time how these pangolins are basically faring. Then we also have more room to rescue more. I mean, there are some animals, unfortunately, we've had to turn down that we couldn't take them up because we couldn't have the space. We didn't have the space to basically cater for them. And I'm talking about things like issues of like lions, hyenas. Even these animals are also being threatened here in Nigeria, but we've not been able to take most of them in because of the space we basically locate. So in the future, we are looking to acquire a bigger space or bigger spaces where we can actually cater for more, and it will also serve as a good educational facility for people all across the country and even beyond the country, where they can learn about wildlife and the importance of Nigerian wildlife.
Yes, really good to hear. So, Chinedu, it's been wonderful speaking with you. So how can people follow you? How can people find you if they want to support you or get in contact? That's the best place.
Okay, our major active platforms are Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So if you're on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and even TikTok also, our handle is GreenFingersWI. So you can contact us there. Right now, we are still looking for, because of the whole Nigerian system, it's quite difficult it's not always easy to get support from outside the country. But if you send us a message through one of our social media handles, we'll basically communicate on how you can support. So you can adopt animals. We do have quite a lot of animals that need to be adopted, to be taken care of. Your funds will really help us. We have a clinic. We are looking to a wildlife clinic. We are looking to set up also to give them these animals better first-hand care. And so you follow us on our social media handles, Green Fingers. That's then Green Fingers WI. So that's basically the handle. I'll send it to you, Jack, so that
I'll put it all in the notes at the end.
Then we are on LinkedIn also, so you can either find me, Chinedu Mogbo, or Green Fingers also is on LinkedIn, so that you can also connect to us through there and share our work. One of the things I appreciate the most, and I'm sure, Jack, it would have been maybe somebody may have shared something, may have shared it, and I think that's one of the ways to people can support if you share our work and put it out there and let people also know that these are what we do here in Nigeria, and we'll definitely appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. It's been really wonderful speaking with you.
Likewise. Thank you.